Well, hey, and welcome to the Becoming Better podcast. My name's Nate, and I'm so glad you're here. Well, on today's episode, Jason, Josh, and I are talking about the church in Pergamum and how Jesus wrote the letter to them. We also dive into some of your questions, and I just want to say thank you for submitting these questions. Thank you for submitting those questions. It really helps us dig deeper and become better disciples of Jesus. Well, without further ado, we hope you enjoy this conversation. How's it going, guys?
Happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah, it's Monday. So you'll be getting this on Tuesdays, but some of you I know will be thrilled for your 4 a.m. podcast.
Yep. We'll get back on schedule.
That's our bad.
Yep. So
Busy season.
It
has been real
a
busy.
couple crazy weeks.
Has been
Yeah.
for sure.
So
But we're back.
Well, for this week. At least.
Back again.
For this week, I can at least
Guess who's back?
Yep.
Yeah. For Monday, we're back. Today.
Yeah.
Tell a friend.
Dun, dun, dun.
So my question for you guys is, which I don't know if this is gonna play out well.
Oh,
This
okay.
might be the wrong room for this one. But if you had to swap lives with any cartoon character for a week, who would it be?
I had to
Cartoon character.
swap lives with any cartoon character, like of all time cartoon
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
I'm going George Jetson.
George.
I'm
Me.
flying in that little car around
Yeah.
for a week.
Interesting.
I got me a robot genie at home,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah.
A robot, not robot genie. That's not a thing. A robot
Dog.
maid at home,
Yeah.
and she's making my food all the time.
Assassin.
Assassin, there is that. Yes. Yeah. Drop Elroy off to school through the button on the thing. I'm in. I'm
Yeah,
Jetson.
okay.
I'm going
Jetson.
Jetsons.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That's a good cartoon. I mean, the cartoon I watched growing up was like G.I. Joe and Thundercats.
Yeah.
Like, let me be
So you're always you're always gonna die. Like that's the thing. Every episode was a chance to die. But you always come out the hero. So
always
there's-
G.I. Joe
always,
and
yeah.
Thundercats, you're always the hero.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like at all times, you're always the hero. Those were great. Yeah, those were the cartoons I watched growing up. And
Yeah.
so I was a G.I. Joe a few times, I think, for Halloween, actually. So yeah, one of those cartoons would be great.
Yeah.
There's some newer cartoons. I'm trying to think what like my kids watch. Or animated characters.
Yeah.
What do we watch a lot of lately?
Coco Melon.
Ugh, I'm so tired of that singing show. I'm like, hey man, can we? You want like
See, my kids are older, so I don't have to worry about that. I think the last time we were doing was like
so
Little
rough.
Einsteins.
Josh, what you need to do
I
is
don't like
start.
that one either.
You need to find G.I. Joe and Thundercats.
I do.
And
Like,
start introducing them to
like,
that.
come on, Amos, let's get with
Yep.
this. So there's a few there's a couple. He'll go in like seasons. Like right now, we're watching the Emoji Movie, which I like the Emoji Movie. It's decent. It's what was the other one we were watching for a while? Oh, it's, Secret Life of Pets, which is funny. It's like kind of Kevin Hart and all
Yeah.
of them in there, so it's got enough humor that I can like engage with it.
Does he like both of them or just the one? Because there's two of them.
There is two of them.
Yeah.
No, he enjoys both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, he enjoys
So it
both.
gives you a
And then we
little-
were in the
little
Despicable
change.
Me for quite a while.
Mm.
It's like that was, which we are still kind of in that, the Grooves and the Minions, and so we've watched that with all the boys. So those
Yeah,
are
all the-
enjoyable.
All the Minion movies by themselves.
Yeah, they're
pretty
enjoyable.
good.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
enjoyable movies. So those aren't like bad. It's just that Coco. It's someone singing, man. It's all the nursery
The
rhymes.
kazoo.
Ugh, gross.
How do you know about Coco Melon?
I have nephews.
Oh my God.
And then the other one, the big one, Paw Patrol. Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
I could get down to be Rubble.
Yeah.
That's we all have our characters. Daddy or Rubble. Okay, I'm Rubble. I think it's Rubble because that's like the chunky bulldog. That's a little hurtful, son. Like that's a little hurtful, but that's fine. It's okay. I'll be Rubble. So we watch a lot of Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
A lot of Paw Patrol. Like this year, we're like, we can't be a Paw Patrol character. Can we be something else, please?
It'd be interesting to see your statistics on, because you know how like now Apple Music and Spotify shows you like, hey, your number one listened like album is this. It'd be interesting to see what your kids like view time on like what stacks up as number one throughout the year.
Yeah, Paw Patrol. For Amos, it's Paw
Yeah.
Patrol, man. Like we can always get down with Chase and Marshall. Like always, they can always find a way to sneak into our thing. And I'm like,
all right, Nate. So what about you?
Yeah, so mine is Hey Arnold. So I would
who?
Hey Arnold,
the football head, right?
Yep.
I was a little
96 is when it started coming out.
Yeah,
so,
I was already grown by then.
Yep.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So
and you didn't have kids. That makes sense.
Yep.
Not 96.
No, 96. I was in college.
Yep.
Aren't you married?
No, I was 98, but thank you for making me old.
So yeah, so
I was 2 whole years later.
oh, my bad.
But he has this like really awesome bedroom, like in this like 5-story building. It was on the top, so it was in. I had to look it up because I was like, where is this based in? It was in Washington. So Hillwood, Washington is where it was located, like the city. But let me just show you guys.
I mean, I've seen Hey Arnold. He's got a football-shaped head. That's all I know about it.
Hey Arnold.
Hey Arnold. This is on Nickelodeon.
Yep, Nickelodeon. But he had this really cool room that he would go out like on the roof and just like hang out. And yeah, so I'd be Arnold for a week.
What's the new one with this kind of a Nickelodeon? The Perry the Platypus. What is that? What is that one?
Somebody's yelling into
right
the
now.
radio.
They're screaming into it. What is Perry the Platypus? Because it's got 2
Phineas
boys.
and Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's 20 years old.
I don't know if it's 20 years old.
2007.
What was that, Josh?
2007.
What was that?
Leads 18 years.
Okay. Well, okay.
You said 20.
If that makes you sleep better tonight.
You said, why is that 2 years not matter when I said 96? You were married,
I was
bro.
about to bring that up.
What's up with that? See? That's
The 2 years.
2 years.
So
Okay.
None of those beats the Jetsons. I'm just gonna say it.
I saw an article.
Around
I saw an article
my
today.
Jetsons.
I saw an article today with flying cars that look like the Jetsons.
Let's go.
So the first ever, I don't remember what it's called. And I was like,
wait, when did that one come out? That was like in the 50s or 60s. Like that's an old.
the Jetsons were that old?
Yeah. I bet.
Oh, wow.
I bet.
I didn't know that.
Nate,
1962.
there you go. The 60s.
Wow. For some reason, I thought it was, I was watching reruns in the 80s.
Yes, for sure you were.
I didn't think it was reruns. It felt so real.
Right.
Like
yes. And well, the Flintstones were too. They were in the 60s.
Now I knew that. Yeah, that one felt a little older.
Okay. Jetsons. Yeah, they were flying cars. I've been promised that my entire life.
And I just saw
but it says that it was set in 2062, so we still got some time.
The world's first Jetson personal aerial vehicle race certainly looked like something from a sci-fi cartoon. That was on my Google just today.
I love it. Let's go.
And they do look like the Jetson car, except this doesn't have like a little tube that's going to. Yeah.
I want that. Let's go. I'm ready.
Oh yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It looks like you can pre-order, Jason.
I'm going to pre-order it. That's great because these roads are getting a little crowded in Prescott.
They really are.
I've been here for 17 years. Now I sound like an old
Yeah.
man.
Okay, let's move
go.
on.
Move on.
Every time I go to Costco, I can't get a parking spot.
No, you got to be careful with Costco, man. You got to look both ways.
There's some dangers.
Danger.
Yep. So,
All right.
awesome. We're in week 3 of our letters to the churches, and Jason, you spoke this Sunday, and it was a good
thinking
morning.
about it made Josh yawn.
Yeah.
Josh, hear that? Wow.
So,
Feel the love.
so Josh, what do you think about Sunday?
I took a lot of notes actually, and my Bible is full of notes. It's cool. I was sitting next to Silas, my 3rd grader, and we have the Bibles in the room, and
for those of you who don't exactly know which one Silas is,
the one that looks just like
it's the mini me.
Yeah.
It's the white version of Josh.
So we're sitting there next to each other, and he's literally underlining like everything Jason underlines, and he circles what you circle, and he's turning to numbers, and he couldn't get there fast enough, so he's trying to like get to it. So we get there for him, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to?"
What a great story!
I don't remember what I'd asked him something, and he was like, "No, I don't need that." Because he's super independent, and he got a pen from Diana, and he just started tracking along. He'd look up at the screen, he'd look down, and I don't know if it's one that he's taken and is using or if he's going to leave it. But like I hope he leaves it so that somebody opens this thing up and it's the 8-year-old who has circled and underlined all these words. He's underlined stuff in Joshua. He went to the Joshua passage and he's just jumping around. So it was fun to just watch that as it's like kind of unfolding. Like he underlined sexual immorality. And I was like, never going to talk about that one, son. But really great. So that honestly was, I mean, the sermon was great, the great end, all that, but that was like a great moment of just watching him circle and underline. I'm thinking that's what we want everybody to do. And then put the Bible back. But you're learning how to go to these places and you're tying things around. And so, it was really fun. The only thing when you were preaching, I was thinking we got to that hidden manna, and I just kept thinking of John 6. John 6 has that whole story. Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he tells them that he's the bread of life. And, he says, there's a line in there where he says, everyone who ate the manna that God provided to the Israelites, they died. Yet if you eat this, you'll live forever. Like that was and so then just thinking about that and this hidden manna, but really this idea of that I'm victorious is that I will find life, right? That I'll eat of the thing that will give me life, right? The reminder of like, they had that manna in the wilderness, but they still died. It didn't sustain them forever.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought about, a couple times when you read that. I was like, man, Jesus talks about manna a few times. He actually calls himself that, essentially, the bread of life.
And it's a parallel, right, to the end of the letter to Ephesus, where they have access to the tree of life. Again, they're eating the thing that's going to give them life.
Right.
And so it's kind of a parallel using different imagery, but the same point.
Yeah. So I thought it was a great just reminder of like, Jesus is, to your point, we've talked about this, is all these things you tied back into Joshua. The sword shouldn't have been a surprise. All these things, like I'm like, Jesus has talked about, he actually called himself this. And in that moment, the disciples, there's a bunch of them that left. To Jesus's response back to the disciples, are you leaving too? And they look at him and go, man, we got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And who was it that recorded that?
John. Yeah. The writer John.
The writer
John records that, John 6. Yeah, but it's so funny because that's one of my favorite responses. They're looking at him like, hey, man, we've given up everything. Like, we're all in here. And people already think we're crazy, so this is fine, I'll eat your flesh, But it is I was thinking of communion and just the reminder of this is what we're doing when Jesus says this is we're eating of him to remind ourselves that we will live forever. And here's another promise is one day, if you're victorious and have received eternal life, this is what happens. So there's so much in this that I think that's what I was thinking about yesterday is you're in Numbers, you're in Joshua, I'm in John 6. There's a couple other places I wrote down stuff. Even in the Ephesians one, I'm like, man, it's so important to know your Bible. Like all of this stuff is in here. Like it's just to connect dots. And you again, that's what you try to do on Sunday morning is connect dots for us. But like the Balaam stuff that you don't know, that you don't know that, and you're like, no, this is why this is a big deal.
Yep.
This story is a big deal. It's not just that it was a talking donkey.
Yeah.
Right. But that's all you know about it because you were a kid and heard it in Sunday school. But you don't really know this is another flannel graph story.
Yeah.
Like Balaam's is not like awesome. It's actually, if you read this story, you're like, woo. Like, so I started, like, Diana, I saw her too. She was like reading, I'm sure remembering, like, wait a minute. I didn't get that in third grade Sunday school.
I don't think that he's making stuff up.
They got all wild and crazy and partied and got the men all, lathered up. Oh, what are we talking about here? So I just thought of this, how much of this, what Jesus is saying is he's pulling from the word, right? All these examples. So just a great reminder of why it's important to know your Bible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to echo that, that's what really stuck out to me of just, it's amazing how, we have so many writers that are writing the book, but it all just flows together and it all just connects. And I love that we go line by line, and love that Jason and the team are able to point back to areas that it wouldn't make sense to go back to Numbers as we're reading about the church in Pergamum.
Yep.
And it's like, oh no, it all connects and it all makes sense. So
you can't really even understand it until you go back and understand what's he talking about when he says they have the teaching of Balaam. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And that they would have. Peter talks about it too. That's what's crazy. Peter talks about it in like 2 Peter. He mentions Balaam as well. He references so it was so known.
Yeah.
That's why, again, for us, it's not known anymore.
Right.
But it was like, speaking of the dangers, they would have said, oh, yeah, like Balaam.
Yeah.
But they could just say that and everybody knows what it means.
Yep.
We do. We just miss out on.
You don't want that applied to you.
No.
They would have gasped. Not in our church.
Not in our church. And these are Gentile people.
Yeah.
That he thought that even they would know this.
They would know it.
Yeah, which is really amazing. So,
and just the fact, connecting the dots of, the trade route is another thing that, people wouldn't have really put together. So even knowing that and now reading it through and seeing like, okay, that makes sense why Ephesus would have been two.
Order.
Yeah. And then so on and so forth. So, and looking at the map, it's like, oh, that's really cool. So, Jason, is there anything you would have wanted to add into your sermon on Sunday?
For sure. There was lots that got hit on the cutting room floor this week. There was so much cool stuff. There was so much more history that would have been fun to tell, just of what we discovered when we were there. I mean, again, I shared a few with the altar of Zeus and, the temples there. There's a whole other place that we got to go visit in Pergamum. That was a huge part of their society. It was the Escapion. Is that how you say it? Escapion. Do you remember this? This was the medical center.
Oh yeah,
in Pergamum, and I think it's Escapion is how you say it. But there's this huge medical facility that is there in Pergamum that you can go visit. And so you walk through, and they've got all of these different tunnels and beds and temples, and people would come from all over the world to go to this medical facility. And they would literally put people in a trance. Like they would put them in a trance, sweat them out, like put them in comas. Like they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff at this place. And the idea was that you were going to receive a dream, and the dream would tell you how to be healed. Like there was, and if you Google up, Nate, for our studio audience here, you can Google up the god Escapion is the staff and the snake. So if you go to any medical facility, many of them have the American Medical Association logo is this staff with a snake wrapped around it. Well, it comes all the way back from Escapion, this god who was pictured as a staff on a snake on a staff. And so, that was a really cool thing that we got to do.
Had a few pools.
Had some springs, healing pools
like
there.
Hot springs or whatever. And it was hard to, so that was like down in the bottom, and you looked up to the top where all of the temples were. Yeah. Right. And so just honestly, it was a long drive.
It was.
I was like, I ain't walking up there. I'm not. And you could see the road, the path. They had kept like some of the original path, but the rest of it would have just cut up this mountain to get up to the top of this hill. And so Pergamum was pretty fortified and protected. Yeah. But I'm thinking, I remember like we were up there and we were looking down, and then we go down and we're looking up, and I'm like, whoa, that's really far up there. Yeah. Like that's a journey. Yeah. Like to go to the temple and to do that thing, you've got to be pretty committed. Yeah. To worshiping.
Yeah.
I don't want to. But yeah, Pergamum was a great site.
It was. It was a neat place to go and to visit and to see. But beyond just some of the historical stuff that we could talk about, a couple of biblical things that I didn't have time to talk about very much. I made at the end this kind of analogy, or this pointed out the difference between Ephesus and Pergamum, and how Ephesus was the opposite of Pergamum. Pergamum allowed everybody to do everything, and in the name of love, we're just not going to call sin, and we'll just accept everybody. While Ephesus drew a hard line and got all of the doctrine right and all the obedience right. Well, we see that even in our text. So we didn't really talk about it when we were in Ephesus, but in our text this last week, it says, likewise, this is in chapter 2, verse 15. It says, likewise, you have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. And I didn't talk about the Nicolaitans except to say that it's pretty much the same as what was taught by the teaching of Balaam. And he says, you have these people in your church who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Well, if you remember back when we talked about Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 6, the Ephesian church, it says, but you have this in your favor. You hate the practice of the Nicolaitans. So there were people in the church in Ephesus, and they wanted to do the Nicolaitan stuff too. And the church in Ephesus says, nuh-uh, not here. We do not roll that way. We are not going to accept this kind of sexual morality in our church. We are going to do what we are told. We're going to obey the word. We're going to reject this sin. We're not having it. This is not biblical. Yeah. Get it out of here. Yeah. They hated it in Ephesus. And Jesus says, and I hate it. And then 2 letters later, you here in Pergamum, you have these people in your church and you don't even care. It's fine for you. And so I just think even just that we see the teaching of the Nicolaitans in both of these and Jesus' response to both of them, I think was interesting. I'd love to spend a little bit more time talking about that if we could. And the other one that we kind of threw around in our sermon planning a little bit was the 2 things that are addressed when he says you hold to the teaching of Balaam. There are 2 things specifically. They eat food sacrificed to idols and committed sexual immorality. And we talked about in Acts chapter 15, there was this moment where the Paul and Barnabas and Paul and Silas had gone out and they had converted Gentiles. So for the first time, the gospel is really going into all the world. And so you have these Gentiles in all of these cities who are hearing the gospel. And in these cities, there are these temples. And here's what they're doing. They're eating this food sacrificed to idols and they're committing sexual immorality. And this conversation comes up of, okay, how does a Gentile actually become a Christian? Do they actually need to become a Jew first? Do they need to obey all of the Jewish laws? Do they need to be circumcised? Do they need to follow some kind of ritual where they're adhering to the 10 commandments, and then we can bring them into the grace of Jesus? And so there's this debate that's happening between the Jews and the Gentiles. And Paul and Barnabas go back to Jerusalem, and they gather up all of the apostles, and they gather up the elders in Jerusalem, and they begin to have this debate of what does it take for a Gentile to become a Christian. And this debate goes on for a little while, and Peter pipes up and Paul pipes up, and they're having this conversation. And Josh, you got it open.
Yeah.
Remind us, what did they say in the end? James, the brother of Jesus, who is the elder of the church in Jerusalem, comes up and says, here's the expectations that we're going to place on the Jews or the Gentiles.
Yeah, James spoke up and he says, it is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write to them, telling them to abstain from food polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, and from from the meat of strangled animals, and from blood. So those were the 3 things.
3 things.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have food. We're not going to go indulge in festivals and feasts of food sacrificed by idols. And we're not going to commit sexual morality, and we're not going to eat strangled meat, an animal that is, still has blood in it. That's kind of the big idea there. Those were the things. That was the only expectations that they put. They don't have to become Jews. They don't have to be circumcised. They don't have to have the Sabbath day. None of that stuff is going to apply. Here's what we expect. And it's interesting that this church here in Pergamum, they're missing out on the very small list of things that that the early apostles and elders said are the expectation for Gentiles, they're throwing them out the window and following after Balaam, and they're eating the food sacrificed to idols, and they're committing sexual morality. Like, these are the two things, the big things that the Gentiles had to do, and they've chucked them out the window. And Jesus brings them back to these two things once again.
Yeah.
So those are two really big pieces of the story.
We're going to talk about that more probably next week, because Thyatira, we'll learn, is very similar in its practices as Pergamum.
Yeah.
So that probably may very well make this week's sermon.
It may.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think it's because, just thinking through, do you think it's because, as the word is just traveling through each on the trade route, there's like, I don't even know how to say it, but like it's watering it down?
What do you mean?
Oh, the further you get away from Ephesus,
yeah,
the further, the worse off it becomes.
Yeah.
Well,
and obviously this is just all speculation,
right?
But that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I would say
yes, but Philadelphia.
That's what I was going to say. In chapter 3, by the time we get to Philadelphia, they don't have anything negative said about them either.
No.
And so they're number 6 out of the 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just think all people have these. We're all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the same urges and the same temptations and the same flesh.
Absolutely.
That's chasing after these things we shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Then let's jump into some questions. We had a couple questions sent in, so let's jump in with Mike. Mike said, yesterday, Jason asked the question, where have you adopted the ways of the world over the ways of God? Are there any ways as a church that we have adopted the ways of the world over the ways of God?
Oh, that is a great question. And I think it's a worthy one to ponder. I would say, as a clarifying question, which I know Mike already knows this, but anywhere that any of us individually have accepted the ways of the world, the church has accepted the ways of the world. We are the church. We are the body. The body is made. The church is made up of the body. So in any way that any of us individually have accepted, I think by definition, you'd say the church has accepted on some level. But I think I understand what Mike's saying. Is there a way that the church as a whole, a congregation, or maybe even pull it out and think about the American church as a whole, is there anywhere we have accepted the ways of the world? And I think, probably, and probably in more ways than what most of us would want to say. Here's a few that I would throw out that I think the church culture, and I don't know about Quad City specifically, but I don't know that we're immune from this stuff. So let me just throw out a few. I think in our materialism, we have accepted the ways of the world. Like we value stuff in the same way that the world values stuff. We probably do not practice generosity in the same way that we see modeled in the early church. They were extreme in their generosity. They're giving fields away so that other people can make sure that they don't go without their needs met. Like, I don't see that level of generosity in the church. I would say our celebrity church culture in America is probably, again, we have so many people in the scriptures who are just faithful people doing the things, and we don't know anything about them. Obviously, we know about a few. We know about Peter. We know about Paul. But there's so many of them that in our culture, we have just made pastors a celebrity in a way that I don't think was ever meant to be. Biblically, I just think we've devalued the ministry of volunteers or lay people. And in the American church, we've just made the professionals, the pastors, they're the ones who are supposed to go do the ministry, and everybody else kind of gets to enjoy that and take that in. And so I think that piece, I think consumerism in the church is one of the ways that we look like the world, where we're going to show up, and if it doesn't meet my need, quote unquote, or if it doesn't have the entertainment value, or doesn't have the whatever it is that's going to keep me engaged, then I'll go down the street and I'll find somebody else who will. And so I think consumerism, in the same way that we've lost the stick-to-itiveness in every area of our life. We have a tendency in our culture to just give up and move on to the next thing. I think we do that in church. I don't think that was true 100 years ago. Maybe because most little towns only had one church, or 200 years ago, you're on the Western frontier, there's one church in town and everybody goes, right? That's kind of the thing. But we've created so many options that we've turned places of worship into something to be consumed, and we're gonna go pick our favorite. And when it runs out of being my favorite, somebody else is doing something better, then I'm gonna go run after that. So I think those will probably be the biggest ones. Josh, you got anything to add?
I was just gonna say what we talked about a couple weeks ago. Just I think our culture is designed to make you comfortable and to kowtow to your preferences. I mean, like our whole feed is all based off of our preference, and anything outside of our preference, And so then the church becomes that same kind of thing, and then we soften truth and we don't say the hard things. And again, collectively, as an American church, I would say that thinking and has slid in, right? That we look like the culture in that we're trying to just please everybody instead of just preaching the truth and saying the things I think Jesus wants us to be said, right? And again, our culture and consumer mindset just kind of dictates, right?
Yeah.
Right into church culture a little bit. So
is there anything specific? And I'd just throw this out to you guys.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific to Quad City that you'd look at and say, oh yeah, if we're honest, there might be a little of this that we've kind of bought in? I was talking with our elders last night, and I think in many churches, we have created church governance that mimics our national governance.
Absolutely.
In a lot of smaller churches, we don't do this here at Quad City, but almost every church that I was a part of, there was 3 bodies. There was the lead pastor or the minister. They didn't even call him pastor because pastor equaled elder. Most churches that I was around, they didn't call him a pastor because he wasn't an elder. He was the executive branch. So you had the executive branch, who was the lead pastor. You had the elders, who were like the Senate.
Yep.
And then you had the House of Representatives, which was your deacon board. And
they had more power.
And that's right. The deacon board has the most power. They're the least spiritual of the group, and they had the most power because they had the most votes. And oftentimes in many churches, they were set up in the same way that our government is set up to be checks and balances for one another. And it actually end up fighting against one another. Instead of trying to be united around a vision, it's the elders think we ought to do this, and the deacons think we ought to do this, and the lead pastor thinks we ought to do this. We're just fighting each other to find a vision for the church. And the minister ends up just being a hired hand and gets voted out by the elders all the time. So in that sense, there's very much a synchronistic way that we've modeled our church governance, even around the same way that our federal government is modeled.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. Yeah, that's a great question, man. Just trying to think through, one of the things we talk about and we've been talking about, pretty regularly, is that the church should look a little more cultish. And there's some of that, right? Is like, how do we kind of define, what they were navigating, and how do we figure that out? And how do we actually, again, they sold things and gave it to the poor, and they actually tried to live out that mission. the best that they could. But your line stuck with me right around just the evil cities still need godly churches. And so that's part of the thing is like, I think the balance is like trying to be in the world. I mean, Jesus says, right, in the world, but not of the world, right? And so trying to keep that balance, and it's messy and difficult, and they're, like
it's not near as black and white.
No, I wish it was, right? I wish it was like, okay, I'm not doing that, right? And even when you're talking to people and trying to counsel people and trying to, figure these things out. And so, it's just really messy. And again, I don't know if we always do it right, but trying to, make sure that if we are leaning more like the world and, trying to, again, I think we felt that recently in the, just even in the way in which we gather and just trying to help the Spirit be more influential, maybe is the word. I don't know if that's
here's another one that I would say, and this one drives me nuts, and I wish I could fix it tomorrow. If I could snap my fingers, I'd fix it tomorrow. There's a sense in which the church in America has become businesslike. And what I mean by that is we have to have conversations about bank accounts and insurances and liabilities and lawyers. And we can't do that because and we can't call people out on their sin. We can't practice Matthew 18 church discipline and stand up and call somebody who's a member of our church an adulterer in the front of the church because you're going to get sued because it's slander or whatever the thing is. Like there is a sense in which we have, because of the legal system that we operate in, we have to operate in some ways very much like a business. We have to create a 501c3. We got to put some LLCs so we don't get sued. We have to have insurance that's going to protect our kids when they're going on like all of that stuff that just comes with anything where somebody could potentially sue you in this country. You have to put people and processes and policies in place to prevent that. And I wish that all could go away today. I just hate it. I hate that piece of it.
I was going to say, they don't cover that in Bible college, do they?
Well, no, not in any way that's helpful. You have a half a semester of a pastoral ministry class, or I'm sorry, practical ministry class, and they're going to spend 1 hour talking about all of that.
Yeah, you ain't talking about that.
No.
You're not talking about that, Nate.
Nope. So, all right.
No pastor I know gets into ministry to be in on those conversations. Like that's not what anybody, but we do. Yeah. We have to. We do. You got to have. We have to do budgets. We're in right. You got to have financial spreadsheets, and you got to have accountability. All of that stuff's good, but it's modeled after the business world that we live in. It's all modeled P&Ls. We have P&Ls, and we don't even have profits, but we have P&Ls, and I just hate all of it. I hate it all. So if we could get rid of it, I'd be done. That'd be over so fast.
Sitting on a thing with an audit and you're looking at your depreciation of things like a business does, right? They have depreciation of assets.
Yeah.
I was on a board meeting yesterday of a nonprofit. It's just trying to love moms who have kids. And so I'm on the board of the Gospel Rescue Mission, and we have that on there, this depreciation in assets. And when you look at their budget, they always laugh like, yeah, this budget tells us we're not making it. Yet every year God provides. He goes, because there's something to this that these sheets of paper can't talk about.
Yeah.
Right. And there is that faith aspect of stuff. And so he always has to remind the board when they get to that. Because if you just look black and white, you're like, what? How is this working? Yeah, shut it down. That's not profitable. And he's like, I don't need to know that the truck is depreciated. I don't care. It's picking stuff up. You know what I mean? Like but it's a business.
It is. And that part of it
has to operate as a business. Yeah. And so
I hate it. I hate it. Yeah. If we could make all that go away, I'd do it.
So love it. Okay.
So sweet. Next question is from Norma. And she says, your sermon on Sunday reminded us that we are called to be holy and set apart from the world. With that in mind, I've been thinking about how hosting a Halloween candy crawl fits with that calling, the trick or treat mindset that focuses on collecting large amount of candy and common themes of witches, devils, and jack-o'-lanterns. all seem to come from a place of darkness rather than light. She says, I understand that you appreciate the heart behind offering families and children a safe alternative on Halloween. Still, I wonder if this kind of event truly helps the church remain distinct from the world, or if it unintentionally mirrors the very celebration we're trying to avoid. You taught that the church must remain set apart. Could this be a moment like the church at Pergamum, where good intention risks blending too much with the surrounding culture? I'm genuinely curious how we can reconcile participating in something that seems to reflect what God calls us to resist.
Well, that's a great question. And it's not a new one. And it's one that I'm wrestling with all the time.
I go to last year's podcast around Halloween. We probably have this exact same thing.
I'm wrestling with it this week. I walk into Josh's office last week and I said, this question is coming, especially in light of this sermon. Of course it is. Of course it is. It seems as if there is this glaring hypocrisy of, hey, we're practicing one thing and we're preaching this other thing. And so it really is something that we have to think about, and we're continually evaluating. I'm this week continuing to evaluate, are we doing the right thing? And so I would say at this point, my conscience is, I do believe that what we're doing is not trying to mimic our culture, or mirror our culture. The intent is to try to infiltrate our culture. Like there is this thing that we're wanting to try to pull away from the darkness of Mount Vernon. If you're driving down that road anytime this week, you are 100% right when you talk about it's zombies and skeletons and gore and all of the dark and evil and the glorification of death. All of that stuff is all down Mount Vernon. We're trying to pull people out of that. We're trying to give opportunities to walk away from that and point to something better. And the thing is, we could, and we did I've been here for 17 years. We've done Candy Crawl for probably six 7
years. Yeah.
Something like that. So we didn't do anything for 10 years. And here's what I would say. When we did nothing happened. Like we can say, should we just not do something like this? And what I can tell you is the fruit from doing nothing was nothing.
Right.
And we can talk about whether or not we're falling in line with the world, but I can point to you to some real fruit, kingdom fruit that has come from us doing the Candy Crawl. Like there are actual people whose stories in the faith or in our church started because of this event. So for whatever we want to say about we should do nothing, there's no fruit from that. And we've done that. And so we've been on both sides. Where I'm at today, I think there is still value. I will say that I have become more convicted coming out of our Ephesians study, our Church of Ephesus, the rise and fall of the Church of Ephesus. We spent so much time learning about spiritual warfare. Like so much of the book of Ephesians was, hey, our enemy is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers of principalities in the dark world. Like we know that. Put on the full armor of God. Like go all the way back to the book of Acts, and they were doing seances and black magic, and they come to faith and they burn their books. And so much of that study was pointing to the reality of spiritual warfare. And I've come under the conviction, even in the last week, of we need to take that part of this night more seriously. And so part of what I had a conversation with our team who is putting the Candy Crawl stuff together is we're going to spend more intentional time and effort and resources in bringing prayer as a part of this, praying away any spirits that would come with people onto this campus. We're going to pray those away, and we're going to pray for the Holy Spirit to meet people while they're here. And we're going to offer opportunities in the Candy Crawl event for people who are just showing up saying, do you want somebody to pray for you? Are you coming in with hurts and pains tonight that we can pray with you? And we're going to have prayer team available to meet the needs of the, 1,500, 2,000, 25, however many thousand people are going to show up. How can we begin having that conversation and praying for these people? So that spiritual warfare piece is way more front of mind for me this year around this event because of our study of the Church of Ephesus. So all of that to say, you could be right. You could be right. Maybe it is wrong. Maybe we're doing it. Maybe it should stop. I don't know. I don't feel that conviction today. It doesn't mean I'm right. I love how Paul says, my conscience is clear, but that doesn't make me innocent.
Right.
So I think we're trying to meet people where they are. We're not mimicking the death and gore. We're not mimicking the glorification of sin in our church or in this event. We are trying to push against all of that. And again, the only reason we're doing this, or the main reason we're doing this, is because we are located in the epicenter of Halloween in Yavapai County. Like, there will be people coming from 100 miles away to do the event down at Mount Vernon. Literally 100 miles. There'll be people come up from the valley just to trick or treat on this street. And I feel like God has placed us in this, within a 2-minute walk of that, for us just to have a blacked out campus. To have a blacked out campus with that many people just steps away feels like a missed opportunity. And again, we're not trying to mimic what they're doing down there. We don't want to have the same experience that they're having down there. We want to provide an alternative, something better, something more joyful and fun and life-giving and lighthearted. We want to bring some light into that dark space for thousands of people because God's put us here. If we were up where Heights is, I wouldn't expect them to do an event like this. It would make no sense for them to do an event like this. But for us, I feel like this is a responsibility. We ought to be a shining light on the hill in this with this opportunity that's been given to us. We're going to have thousands of people who come to our campus and may never come for anything else. And it's a chance for us to step into that dark spot. So again, my conscience is clear today, but that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. And so I want to say that piece of it too. I go back and I think about Romans chapter 14. We studied the book of Romans together a couple years ago. And there's this great text in Romans chapter 14 that addresses this very issue. So I just want to start reading a little bit and try to make a parallel point here. Paul writes, "Accept the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not, and the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall, and they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. One person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. Whoever eats meat does so to the Lord, for they give thanks to God. And whoever abstains does so to the Lord and gives thanks to God. For none of us lives our lives alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. If we live for the Lord. If we die to the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. For this very reason, Christ died and returned to life, so that we might be the Lord of both the dead and the living. You then, why are you to judge your brother or sister? Or why do we treat them with contempt? For we will all stand before God's judgment seat. It is written, as surely as I live, says the Lord, every knee will bow before me, every tongue will acknowledge me. So then each of us must give an account of ourselves to God. So the point that Paul makes is, look, there's disputable matters. There are some things that aren't clear. There is no event or there is no verse in Scripture that says don't do a trick-or-treat event. That's not in there. It's a disputable matter. And there are some people who are convinced in their mind that it is wrong, that even the roots of it coming away from this All Hallows Eve makes it too evil to even be associated with. There are some who have that conviction. And if that's your conviction, you should abstain. You should not participate. If that is your God-given conscience is telling you that, then you are right to avoid being a part of any of that. There are others who say, no, this is actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to be the light in the darkness on the darkest night for many people in the world. Although I don't think most Americans have any satanic connection or event or desire or activities that are connected to, but some do. We can't deny that.
For sure.
But some would say, but this is our opportunity to speak into that light. You know, when we were outside of Prescott, I'll share this. Josh and I were just talking about this earlier. When we lived in Granville, this was when I first moved to town 17 years ago. I moved to Granville, and unlike Prescott, there's not the same centralized place where trick-or-treating happens in PV. They've now done this event at the Toyota Center, but they weren't doing that 15 years ago. And my wife and I, we had a son, 2 years old, and 3, 4, 5. We lived out there, and in Granville, you actually would have some people who would walk around. And we lived on a cul-de-sac, and so I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring my grill. Actually, I brought a propane camp stove and set it up on a table in my driveway." And I made chili and had this big giant, I probably had my wife make chili. I doubt I made chili. But we offered chili or soup to anybody. We would do cider. We did a big old pot of cider. My wife would put the little red hots in the hot cider. And we looked for opportunities to invite our neighbors. I would drag our TV out onto the driveway and I would plug in the game because at that point, that was when NBA basketball would start almost right around Halloween, a couple of days, give or take, every year. And so I'd put a ball game on and I would put chairs out there. We'd have hot dogs or whatever the thing was. And I would sit there and meet all of my neighbors. Like, at what other opportunity in America are your neighbors going to walk up to your house and be open to a conversation? I leveraged that night for that opportunity to build those relationships. Here in Prescott, we don't have that. They're not coming to my driveway.
No.
Zero chance they're walking. I live with a pretty steep little hill coming up. They're not coming to my house. Nobody's coming to my house. So how can I have that same kind of mentality of loving my neighbor? Well, we can do it through this. We can do it as a church community.
Yeah, that was good. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
But again, I would say, if you're convinced otherwise, you should not do it. And you should not feel compelled to do it. I would just say leave some grace for those who see it a little bit different. Go to Romans 14. It says, look, the one who eats meat, his conscience is clear and it's okay. He can eat it and thank God for it. For the other person who's eating the meat, he knows, well, there was a chance that somebody may have prayed something over that thing, even though it's being sold in the market. He's not going to the temple and eating a sacrificial meal dedicated to, we just talked about that. That's not happening. This was the leftover from those feasts that's now being sold in the market. And it might have been, it might not have been. Some people say, well, because it did, I can't eat it. Well, then you shouldn't eat it. And that's the whole point that Paul's making here is, look, on these disputable matters, it's okay for us to disagree. You should stand firm in the conscience that you have before the Lord.
So good. Joe submitted some questions, and
Joe makes me think too much.
He does.
I need some softballs. It's Monday.
He's throwing fast pitches, so
He is.
get ready. His question is, what indicators might we pay attention to that would reveal that a church like ours is holding the name of Jesus publicly, but quietly losing the fear of the Lord privately?
Say that one more time.
Yeah. What indicators might we pay attention to that would reveal that the church like ours is holding the name of Jesus publicly, but quietly losing the fear of the Lord privately?
Okay. That is a great question. And I don't know how to answer that outside of saying that stuff is what gets revealed in discipleship groups and in life groups. Like, I don't think it gets revealed on a Sunday morning, staring at the back of the head of the person in front of you. Let me give you two conversations that I have had in the last week. I've had a conversation with someone who is unmarried in a discipleship group and has come under the conviction that I should not remarry a divorced person. The biblical thing that we've taught here for years, like God through Christ calls that adultery. Paul calls that adultery. He says a man who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. And so the conviction this person has come to is I can't marry a divorced person. And he's been in 2 discipleship groups with men who are trying to convince him otherwise. And now they're not going to stand up and say that when I'm preaching. When I'm publicly making that declaration, they're not going to stand up and say that. But to this man who has come under this conviction that I'm not going to marry this divorced woman or a divorced woman, it's like his discipleship group is saying, well, you can just ask for forgiveness. Just marry her and God's okay with it. And that was heartbreaking to me because I'm like, what are we doing? Even if you disagree, you look at Romans 14 and you say, I've come to a different conclusion on that matter. There are pastors who teach something different than Jason teaches, and I've come to a different conclusion. I don't believe that what Jason believes on this is true. Even if that's true, what Romans 14 teaches is, listen, if that's their conviction, it would be a sin for them to do it, even if it wouldn't be a sin for you to do it.
Yeah.
And so, again, that would be one example of publicly we proclaim one thing, but in this discipleship group or in this life group, we're proclaiming something else privately. Here's the second one. And this was a shocker. Josh and I are sitting in my office and somebody comes in and says, I just had to have a conversation with somebody in our church who didn't believe or didn't understand that having an open marriage is wrong. Got real quiet, you two. An open marriage. Like they didn't come to, and one of two things, like it's great. Maybe they just are so brand new to the faith that it didn't, I'm not sure that was
I don't think so.
I don't think that was it. That would be fine, right? If you had a throuple who's coming in and they come in and you want to help him?
No, I don't. I know what you're saying. I don't
explain
know.
it after.
No, I got
You're good. You're good.
Nope, we're good.
If they came in and said, listen, and we didn't know.
Yeah, 100%.
That'd be great. We would rejoice over that story.
Yep.
But believers who we think it's okay for us to invite other people into our marriage bed. That was a conversation we had this week. So again, Joe, it's a great question. I don't know if it's something that we can address or figure out. We don't see it, or at least I don't see it on a Sunday morning. I see it, those things getting revealed in discipleship groups and life groups where where what is proclaimed and understood corporately is just not being believed and lived out privately. And I think that's it's disheartening. So again, those are two examples that have happened over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then his final question is, if Jesus wrote a letter to Quad City the way he did to Pergamum, what would he affirm and what would he say, but I have this against you?
Oh, I don't want that letter. But I also don't want to answer it yet.
Yeah.
So, Joe, thank you. That is a great question. I'm going to probably ask that same question at the end of this series. I'm probably going to say that publicly. I'm going to invite our church to speak into that conversation. I want us to walk through a few more of these letters to see the kinds of things that Jesus is calling out among his churches. Yeah. And you just got ahead of me. We're going to end up there. I want to hear from our church, and I'll probably bring a few examples of what I think that's going to be, but I want to wait. I want to go through a few more of these letters and see what the Lord reveals. I think there are some things we're doing right. And for sure, there's going to be things that we would get called out on. I've already called one of them out, right? When we did the Church of Ephesus.
I was about to say, we've kind of acknowledged that we probably mirror that church.
Yeah. We're gonna tend toward the legalism or the holding tight onto right doctrine, and miss out on just loving people well.
I mean, it's the question we get every year around the Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the candy crawl because we are so right-minded, focused around doctrine. And again, and I'm not saying it's wrong, any of these questions, but it always is in the mindset of, hey.
We don't get the question is, how do we love people well on Halloween?
Yeah, we don't.
That's not the question anybody's asking.
But again, though, that's just how most of our people tend and how we kind of swing the pendulum. And so we know that this is so you said it out loud. We all, again, you joked about it, if you've been here 15 minutes, you probably know which one we are. But again, that is the piece. And so again, I actually think that we're doing the thing like Candy Crawl is probably hopeful for us to get out, rub shoulders, love people, doing the community meals. And there's kind of, again, it's hard and it's messy. And yet that's some of the stuff that we want to do. I was telling a guy yesterday, we're always James, we're going to err on the side of mercy. If you're asking me, should we or should we not help people? We're going to err on the side of probably should just love people. I think God will be glorified by that. Again, we use wisdom and discernment, but I think at the end of the day, if he knows my heart and I'm just trying to love people the best that I can, God is going to go, yeah, that's okay, Josh. All right. And so,
not to the point where we're
not being sinful,
right?
But we shouldn't even have to justify it because I'm a believer, and I wouldn't do that,
right?
You know what I mean? Right. I wouldn't do that because.
But culturally, we understand that people do.
Yeah, but that's again, we're going to try to hold those in tension. We're going to hold that balance, and so that's a great question. But again, I think that would be for sure. That would definitely be one of the ones that, the Church of Ephesus looks. Yeah, a lot like us. Or we look a lot like them, we should say.
Yeah.
And I think us as a whole church should be thinking through that. And I love that you're going to set that up. So I'd be interested to see what our listeners and even the church all would answer to that. So
it would be interesting.
Yeah.
So let's just say it out loud again. The question that Joe asked is, what would Jesus say to us? What would he affirm? What would he commend? And what would he condemn? What would he commend? Hey, man, Quad City, you do this good. I know your deeds. It gives us a few good things. But I also know, nevertheless, I have this against you. Ugh.
Don't make me bring the sword.
Oh, my goodness, right?
Yeah. So, awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you have a good week, and we'll see you guys Sunday.